On this episode of Scots Abroad, we talk to a pacey, talented, two-footed winger with an eye for spectacular goals. Breaking through into the Hearts' first team, scoring in an Edinburgh derby, and what it meant to him and his family and friends. Winning the championship, returning Hearts to European football, and then Scotland under-21 call-ups, before moving to the MLS for Minnesota, being traded overnight, and now being settled in Colorado. This is Scots Abroad with me, John Walker, and this episode's guest, Sam Nicholson. Sam, thanks very much for joining me. How's it going?
Good, mate. Good. Yourself?
Aye, not bad. I was just saying before we started recording, your surroundings look a lot better than mine. You're facing your patio doors, but I can see clear sky out the background. It looks absolutely amazing.
Aye, it's nice here. It's nice. It's like 25 degrees today, so not bad.
It's been decent here, but I'm obviously marred by the fact that it's now midnight here. You were explaining that you're back doing training programmes individually. How's that working out?
It's good, yeah. It's good. It's been very tough, but it's just good to get a touch of the ball again. But there's only so much you can do at the same point,
Yeah, we were talking. I was saying the Mainz players were saying that they've only been able to train in groups of 5, so it's really hard to do any shaping. And somebody showed a goal from the weekend where a player in midfield just ran right through the middle of the fence, and it looked like nobody had been training together. Is that the same situation for yous?
Yeah, well, we train 4 at a time, but we only have our own little sections, and we're not allowed to cross over anyone's sections. We're not allowed to pass the ball to each other. Nothing, mate. It's literally us with a ball in our little quarter, and the coach just takes us for a wee session, and that's it. It's tough though. He's got us doing a lot of work, to be fair, but it's a lot. You enjoy football more when you can play with others, I suppose. So.
So I would just like to start. Grew up in Pennycook.
Yep.
Same thing I ask everyone. What's your earliest memories of watching football, playing football?
Earliest, I used to have watching football. I used to go to the Hearts games when I was younger. I had a season ticket for about 5-6 years. So I used to go there with my dad and 2 of my brothers. So that was all I really knew when I was younger. It was just Hearts, to be honest. And my dad supported Aston Villa, so I watched them on the TV. So Aston Villa were obviously a team I liked, but that was it really. I would just really watch their 2 teams. And then in terms of playing, I would just play with my friends. I was at Hutchison Vale when I was younger, and Lone Head. And to be fair, I got really good coaching for those 2 teams, which helped me sort of want to play football a bit more as well.
Growing up, when you were a bit younger, where did the two-footedness come from, and when did that interject with your career? Because anyone who's watched any of your goals or watched you dribbling in off the right or the left, you are incredibly two-footed. Is that something learned, or was it self-taught?
I had no choice in my family. I've got an older brother. One's just left-footed, the other one's both-footed, and my dad sort of would put us all in the back garden, and I would have to hit the ball off the garage with my right foot and then hit off my left. And he used to always catch me trying to hit it again with my right, and he'd be like, no. He used to say, no, if you want to be a footballer, he was like, you need to be 2 feet. He was like, I'll give you an advantage over someone else. To be fair, I had good coaches, but my dad was a really good one as well, because he liked football when he was younger. He had trials with Hearts when he was younger and stuff like that. And I have my brothers as well that helped me massively. So the two-footedness sort of came from my dad and my brothers. They sort of, like I said, I didn't really have a choice. I had to use both feet.
You talked about Hutchison Vale there, so anyone who doesn't know footballers listening to this outside of Scotland, Hutchison Vale are synonymous with producing players that go to Hibs and Hearts. When you were at Hutchison Vale, at what point did you become aware that Hearts were interested in you, and what age was that at?
Really young, actually. I think I was about 9 or 10. I got invited to they done these little training camps in the summer. And I went to one of them, and then I got asked to sign for them. And at that point, you could play for 2 teams. You could play for Hutchison Vale and Hearts at the same time. But when I was at Hutchie, I had a couple of players on my team who'd been at youth initiative teams and got released, and the players were gutted and stuff. And my dad did say, it was like, it's up to you what you want to do. It was like, whatever you do, we'll support it. But I saw a lot of people getting released, and I just didn't really want that. And he did mention that to me. He was saying, look, a lot of players are getting released. At this age, he was like, it's tough for players to sort of bounce back from it, even at such a young age. He was like, it's still entirely up to you. But I think we all agreed. My mum, my brothers, and my dad agreed that I was too young at the time. So we said no to them, and then the season after they came in again. And then I really wanted to enjoy football at that time as well and try and win things, you know. Like, you can't really win stuff at youth initiative. So we agreed to stay there, and then I think I was 12, decided to go. It was a good decision because I managed to get a lot of enjoyment out of my football before from Loanhead and Hutchie.
When you go to Hearts at that age, so 12, 13, is there any specific programme that they introduce? Something that I've kind of watched with Hearts is they do seem to produce players like yourself. Like there was Templeton, Driver, Walker, yourself, Billy King, that all kind of came through one after the other, who were very good on both feet, very good wide players dribbling with the ball. Was that something they ever spoke about for you to watch people, or did you naturally watch people in your position as you were growing up?
In terms of like individual training, when we were obviously in our teams, and especially as soon as you start going full time, I had Darren Murray, who brought through probably every one of those players you mentioned. Brought through Driver, Templeton as well, Walker and Billy. I think he was really good at getting the best out of players, and he was good at like the mental side of things. And obviously the way he coached as well, and the way he wanted us to play suited wingers. So it changed our game a little bit, and it got us to. He would swap us on the wings all the time as well. Like there was me, Billy, and Jamie at one point, and we would all just swap, and we just sort of learned to use our foot again. I had good coaches there, and then obviously I had Robbie Nicholson, I had Liam Fox and John Daly and stuff like that would help as well. And John Murray, who was the head of the academy, was really good with, you know, bringing players, especially wingers and stuff. So yeah, it was something I think we all sort of learned at Hearts. It definitely helped us coming through there, even at the younger age groups.
When you're coming through year on year, are you getting yearly reviews from coaches on what you need to work on? And is there ever any danger that you're going to be told? Did you see teammates getting moved to the side when you were still coming through?
Yeah, at the young age groups, yeah. At the young age groups, from 12 till I went full time, every 6 months we had a review. Christmas at the end of the season, there was always a chance you could get released. I can remember, I think it was under 14s, I think, when I had Stevie Fulton was one of my coaches. I can actually remember like saying to my dad before the meeting, I was like, I'm going to get released. He was like, why? And I was like, I saw players getting released that were a bit better than me. And then when we went into the meeting, Stevie Fulton was like, no, we're keeping you on. And I can remember my dad saying, I thought he was going to get released. And Stevie Fulton was like, no, he was like, it's not about what he's like now. He's like, it's about potential. He's like, we see something in the future. Because to be honest, when I was 14, I couldn't really kick my arse. Like, I wasn't like the worst player in the team, but there was a lot of players like a lot better than me. And they obviously saw that I was going to be better in the future, which must take a good coach to see that, because I couldn't see that. If I was training people, I wouldn't know who's going to be good and who's going to be bad in the future. Well,
if he's seen potential, is he giving you pointers as to what you said? I think the story you told about being two-footed and being your dad's work ethic and forcing you to keep working at it, is the coaches reinforcing that mentality?
Yeah, all coaches. I mean, like I said, Stevie Fulton was really good with me. We had a coach called John Cockrell as well, who was really good at 15s. They were always a constant reminder, you know, of what we had to work on in our positions. And they obviously kept showing us about how many players were breaking through at Hearts in the first team, and they were saying there's no reason why this can't be you. So we sort of had that there for us, and we had a good stepping stone in terms of being in the youth team to get to the first team.
And you worked your way through the first team. In pre-season of 2013, Hearts fall into administration, so deducted 15 points. At the end of May, the previous season, I think there was about 13, 14 players released. I think Danny Wilson was the only one that came in. Does Gary Locke at that point speak to all the youth players that he knows and explain to you that there's a good chance that yourself, Brad Mackay, Billy McKing, David Smith are all going to get chances maybe sooner than they anticipated? Or was that pretty much on line with your development?
Yeah, he did talk to us. I can remember him, Darren Murray would talk to us as well, our 19s coach at the time. And they were just constantly reminding us that if we performed even at like 19s and we kept performing, we would get a chance to, you know, train with the first team and then eventually break through. So we always had that there. And Lockie was really good. I don't know if Lockie got as much credit as he maybe deserved in terms of bringing, you know, a lot of players through, because I know he had a lot of pressure on because we had the points deducted and stuff like that. But he definitely helped bring a lot of players through, along with Darren Murray, and then following that, Robbie Nicholson done the same. It's
actually quite similar to the way we talk about Bertie Vogts with Scotland. Is that second half of that season under Gary Locke, you guys picked up, I think you were like the third best team in the league after January. But it was the early season form and the 15-point deduction that were just almost impossible to claw back.
Yeah, definitely. It was tough. It was tough for everyone, especially Lockie, obviously, because he's a diehard Jambo himself. Also, a lot of the older players, I did feel sorry for a lot of the older players, because they players like Ryan Stevenson and stuff. They had, it was a lot tougher for them than it probably was for us. Because for us, we still had that little bit where, we're breaking through. It's still like a good year for us. But for him, it was another season where he wanted to, win things and do well and enjoy his football. But it was kind of tough because he was probably going in the dressing room on a Saturday and seeing little idiots like me sitting next to him being cheeky. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that must have been a pain in the arse for him. Because I was a cheeky little shit. Probably a lot of them didn't really like me because I was a young boy. I was really mouthy. And back then I was like, they're nasty. But now I'm like, yeah, I was an idiot. I can see why they didn't like me then.
And on the 31st of August, we've already spoken about that season, 31st of August, away to Inverness, you were on the bench, you came on. Did you know you were definitely getting on in that game?
No, I didn't have a clue because I'd been on the bench a couple of times before. Like, there was times where he would tell me to go and warm up, and I was like warming up, and I was obviously nervous in that, and then he would call in another winger, and I'd be like, oh. But yeah, I mean, he obviously felt against Inverness. He obviously thought the time was right to sort of play me because I've never been built, big enough to go in and play in a man's game. So I think that was what maybe was holding him back. But no, he obviously had faith in me. So it was obviously good. It was good to get that chance, and it was obviously a great moment for my family as well.
Yeah, with it being away from home, is that a bit bittersweet, or does your dad go to all the games?
I think I can't remember if he was at that game or not because it was Inverness. I think he might have missed that, but him and my mum, for the first year when I started breaking through, would come every game home and away, and then my dad got in an altercation with a fan. Then I just said to him, "Look, stop going to the away games. Like, if it's annoying you," I was like, "Stop." I was like, "Just let it go."
You made an interesting point there. I've spoken to numerous footballers. Charlie Gilmore, who was at Arsenal, is now at Norwich. Every one of them says the same thing, and it's quite interesting. You were talking about being a slight winger with pace, maybe not physical. Do you feel that academy football in Scotland and the UK in general prepares you for what you're coming up against when you move to the adults game?
I don't know. It's kind of tough because, see, for coaches, like to get players proper ready for first team, they need obviously the technical side and physical side, but there's a mental side as well. And you can't, in academy football, you can't shout at these kids, because then you're going to have the kids breaking down. You're going to have the parents not happy with the way you're shouting at your kids. Like, I think that's something that I didn't get in the academy. I got that when I turned full time with Darren Murray. Darren Murray would pure scream at you, and it actually helped you because first few weeks you're like in a mood. You're like, why is he always shouting at me? Like, pure upset. And then after a while, you just learn to deal with that. And that, I think that part is the part that gets you ready to actually be in the first team, because you're going to get people shouting stuff in there. And obviously, it's kind of hard to get at youth, which you probably don't need as well.
There was an interview with yourself, I think it was January that season. I really liked it. It was the point where I think you said you playing for Hearts was the only dream you'd ever had in football. Is that just something that only people... I think there's a real bias in Scotland, obviously, towards Rangers and Celtic. And I think people do forget that people passionately follow every team that support around that. Was it simple as that? You were a young boy, you were playing for the team you'd always supported and nothing else mattered?
To me, yeah. I mean, I always had, when I was younger, I obviously I just wanted to be a footballer. And I would always like I said, I had a season ticket, so I was going to the Hearts games and all I wanted to do was get on the pitch. So that was obviously just my dream. And then, when I achieved it, I was like, what's next? Like, I didn't have a clue what was next because that was all I ever wanted to do. But then it got to a point where I'd been at Hearts for too long. I wasn't performing as well because I was too comfortable and stuff. So I was like, I probably should have had a goal after this, because I would have loved to stay at Hearts the rest of my life when I was younger. But at the same point, something mentally was stopping me from performing because I was so comfortable. I'd made what I wanted to do. Obviously, you would have the fact of, but you should still keep trying to win games and pleasing fans, and all that stuff. But it is hard. I always thought it'd be easy to keep just doing that. I could stay at Hearts rest of my life, but it wasn't as easy as that.
Yeah, I think in Scotland the issue is Rangers and Celtic. So even if you are part of a good Hearts team, if Hearts, Aberdeen, Hibs excel, the chances are Rangers, Celtic or English Championship clubs are going to come in and pickpocket the likes of John McGinn, Lee Griffiths, people are going to get taken from those teams, David Templeton, Lee Wallace, Ian Black. It's just the nature of the beast, and you're going to see all the talented players that you can look around and perhaps see a future with Hearts, and then they leave and you're kind of left behind, and you've got to look out for your career as well in the end of that.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's one thing I wasn't really, prepared for. When I was leaving Hearts, I literally didn't have a plan after Hearts. Like that was one thing. Like you said, these players went on to like your Celtics, Rangers, or Championship and whatever. And I hadn't properly planned that, when I was younger, just because I wanted to play for Hearts so bad. So it was tough, but I'm in a place now where I've been able to experience living in a totally different country, and enjoy my life, get no hassle. Which is a bonus, because I was a cheeky little thing when I lived in Edinburgh, which didn't help. So yeah, it's just nice. It's nice to experience this and just be away from it all. But I've got goals now that I need to try and get to as well.
Yeah, we will get on and talk in detail about the MLS stuff, because that's really why we're kind of fascinated by the people who have moved abroad. But I want to kind of bask a wee bit in your Hearts glory, because you've kind of breezed past the positive part in your upward trajectory and already started to focus on the leaving.
I do that, mate. I always miss the positives.
A week later, after that interview where you said it was your dream to play for Hearts, you finally score for your boyhood team. As you said, your mum and dad came to the games. Is that just a proud moment for all the family?
Yeah, we were all buzzing. It was an absolute stinker of a goal as well. Absolute stinker. Honestly, I think I was about 2 inches from hitting it wide from a yard out. But no, it was a great moment for my family and stuff like that. And obviously a lot of my friends were happy and stuff. So yeah, that was class. I can remember that feeling. That was the best feeling. I can remember scoring and like running to the side and like doing this to the fans, and then turning around and realising nobody was celebrating with me because everyone was scrapping in the goal. And I was like, oh. Like I would have preferred like a lovely like run up and like, but it is what it is. I mean, I don't think anyone even noticed it was me that scored, because there was a big scrap going on.
That's right, because for those who don't know the game, that made it 3-2 in the 89th minute, so other players would have been getting the ball back whilst you're basking in the glory of scoring for your boyhood team.
It was a bit bittersweet, but it was still one of the best feelings I've ever had.
Well, you went on to draw that game. You scored again a minute and a half later, so it can really be justified in your celebration. It's fine.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks later, you scored a really nice goal against Kilmarnock at Rugby Park, cut back from the right, first time finishing your right foot. You appeared 25 times that season, scoring twice. Hearts unfortunately went down, as we spoke about. You signed a 3-year deal. I was going to ask if you were surprised the guy a lot got sacked, but you've already said that was pretty clear. Is the following season as hyped as it could have been for a relegation? Like, nobody wants to go down, but when you go down and it's your Derby team and Rangers in a division, it's almost as competitive as the top league for the first time in the history of that division.
Yeah, I thought, but that's probably still to this day, that's probably like my favourite season I've ever played. It felt more competitive than even the season after, when we went back up to the SPL. Like, that was such a competitive league. Even like your smaller teams were hard to play against. Like, you'd have like your Wraith Rovers and stuff at the time were a decent team to play against. Like that was a tough league. But I just thought we just went about our business like every day the right way. And we took every game by game. I mean, there was a point where we were like, it was like 18 points clear, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're going to win the league. Like, what do you think?" And we were all just like, "We've no won it yet." Like, it was just a bit. We just had the best attitude towards it, and I think that's what ended up winning us the league, because we could have easily got carried away with ourselves.
When Robbie Neilson took over from Gary Locke, did anything change as such? Because they're both Hearts men through and through, and the football kind of just seemed to carry on. It didn't really look from my view that anything really changed in the football. It looked like a team that had just continued on, and I know it sounds bizarre because you got relegated. You continued on the good form you were already on in the SPL. Yeah,
it was. Plus, we had a lot of youth players, and we'd all came through the system and playing in the same way and stuff. And we went from literally a good coach to another good coach. It was easy for us to sort of just carry that on, and it was good for us. I mean, especially there were so many young players getting so many games under their belts. They were just performing well. Yeah, like you said, it just carried on through. It was like a good bit of momentum that just helped us sort of take that league by storm, I think.
We talked about the scrappy goal at St Johnstone. So a couple of games into that season, Tynecastle, 78 minutes on the clock. You get the ball, but 40 yards for goal. How many times have you been asked to talk through this goal?
A lot. To be fair, I don't really get bored of it. That's still to this day. That's probably the highlight of my career. I liked winning the league and stuff was class. So it's probably up there with winning the league. Sorry, but that goal was it meant so much to my whole family and my friends. I even had so many Hibs supporters and my pals. I can remember after the game looking at my phone and getting so much abuse, and I was just so I was so happy with the abuse I was getting, honestly. But that was the best feeling I've had. I can't really remember what I done right after. I can remember the ball going in, but I can't mind what I done. I can remember running over to where my family sit, but I can't. I checked back my celebration on the video, and I was like, "What am I doing?" I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
We're actually interviewing Scott Robertson because Scott Robertson played in Romania for a spell. I mean, did you apologise to Scott Robertson?
No, I didn't. It's football. It's football. This stuff happens, you know. I mean, it happened. I don't know really what to say. It was just, it just felt right to do at the time. But he's always been a really good player. You know, I played against him a couple of times. He's always been a tough compare. He was always really good. I've not apologised. Nah, I'm not.
I know I'm being a little cruel there, but it is one of the actual really, really good parts of the clip. As you see it from behind the goal and the absolute dejection as he falls to the ground when it smashes the post and hits the back of the net. It's a feeling that I've had it done to me plenty of times, but I can never imagine it happen at that level. That was the start, I think, I've watched all your goals. That was the start of really a highlight reel that just seemed to be goal after goal, right foot, left foot. That was just phenomenal. And Hearts that season were just out of this world. Amazing goal at Dumbarton. You beated Cowdenbeath 10-0. Were you surprised? I guess that's another question for us. Were you surprised at that time that you weren't involved in Scotland under 21s that year?
I felt like the 21 setup, you mean?
Yeah.
I felt like I should have maybe got called up a little bit sooner than what I did, but it's kind of hard because at my age group there was always really good wingers, so I couldn't sit there and say, "Oh, I'm better than them, I'm better than that." I have people like Ryan Fraser, playing in the same 21s team, so I can't really say I should be in over him because I shouldn't. It's as simple as that. But yeah, there was a lot of wingers. You had Billy as well, who was doing really well, and he was getting called up to Scotland. So I couldn't fault them for not really calling me up. And I feel like with those sort of age groups as well, there's always a bit of oh, do you feel like you should be in this? He shouldn't be. It's always. So I just never really focused too much on letting that bother me. I was just happy playing with Hearts anyway. I was enjoying every minute of it.
The season was phenomenal on a whole. I mean, I'm a Rangers fan, so it wasn't that phenomenal for myself. You finished 21 points clear of Hibs, which I think actually a lot of people forget that Rangers weren't even second. Blown away favourites Rangers. He's won the Championship, back to the Premier League. What's the celebration for that like, knowing that you've achieved your own bit of history at Hearts? You've actually won a title at Hearts.
When we won, I was actually away with the 21s. That was the first time I got called up for the 21s, and I was away. So all the players were in the Gorgie suite celebrating, and there's me in a room with, who was it? I think it was Jack Hamilton I was in a room with. And we were obviously buzzing. And then one of the players from the 21s ended up calling up sick. So we called up Billy King because Billy King had been struggling with an injury a couple of months before. He turns up the day after we won, and I swear he looked like a zombie. And I was like, what happened? He was like, we were all out. He was like, we've all been out for about 26 hours and no one home. I was like, what? I was like, I've been sitting in this hotel room. They were all celebrating. Me, Jack Hamilton, I think it was Jordan McGee as well. We were all just sitting in a hotel room. We couldn't celebrate. I was gutted, honestly. Absolutely fuming.
I guess the highs of the Championship win, promotion back to the Scottish Premiership. You and Hearts were probably the form team in Scotland for 18 months. I would have said picked up as many points as anyone did over the two divisions. What's Robbie Neilson laying down as the goal when you get promotion? No manager with that trajectory is going to ask for just avoiding relegation, but was it as high as qualifying for Europe, or was it just hitting a points tally? What is the discussion?
I can remember we actually had during pre-season, we actually had a meeting where we discussed what our goals were, and there was like a couple of people like, we need to finish top 6, and then there was people saying, well, yeah, we need to avoid relegation, and there was some people going, well, let's just finish as high as we can get. Like, what's not to say we can't finish any higher? And I can remember Robbie saying, yeah, he's like, I don't want to just sit there and say avoid relegation. I don't want to sit there and just finish 6. He's like, I want to finish wherever we can. He's like, we're good enough to do it. Then we did it. That was another good feeling, because I think Hearts hadn't qualified for Europe in a long time. So to do it was brilliant, and that was, like you said, it was sort of a thing that Robbie said in a meeting, and all the boys agreed to it.
Was there any doubts of your own ability when you were going to step up a level, or were you very confident going into that first game against St Johnstone?
No, I was fairly confident, to be fair, because I'd already played in that league, and I played in a sort of struggling team, so I knew it was going to be different this time. We had good players that had good experience. We had like Morgado Gomez and Prince Boab and centre mid, who had played there. They'd won the Scottish Cup and stuff like that. So we were, as a forward player, you're always like comfortable with doing whatever, because you've got a player like that behind you. And
in that first game, it's a 3-each draw going into the last 10 minutes. Is that a run that's taught, or is that just instinctive? Because a lot of the goals I've seen, even a couple of the goals in America recently, is you do make that run a lot off of the back of the fullback coming across the centre halves.
A bit of both, to be fair. Like I used to get taught it by Stevie Crawford, who was Robbie's assistant, used to teach us that run. But then, like, it's literally one of those things that you do a couple of times, then it just comes natural to make that run. So yeah, it was a bit of both, to be fair. But once you're in the box, like for me, I don't really score as much as I'd like. Nowhere near as much. I miss more than I score, to be fair. But there's a lot of like times where it's like an instinct just to make that instant run. Because if it doesn't come to me, I'll go to somebody behind me, hopefully, You got a lot of goals that year, so your goal instinct was obviously there. I know you're saying you miss a lot more than you score, but if you're looking for a highlight reel, I don't get to see any of that. Goals against Partick, goals against Kilmarnock, and in the Christmas week fixture, you're playing Celtic at home, going into half-time. What's it like it's a similar run, that one in the back off of Lustig. What's it like for Hearts? So I guess it's Hibs and then it's goals against the Old Firm. That is the ultimate. Yeah, I was buzzing with that. Celtic were, from when I was younger, it was always Celtic and Rangers dominating, and then I saw obviously what happened with Rangers, and then Celtic just kept romping everything, and I can just remember once I'd scored from like against Hibs, I was like, I need to try and score against them, because they were winning everything. Like, and it's not like a hatred as in I hate you so much. It's like when somebody beats you, son, you're like, I want to beat you. Like, it's as simple as that. So for me to score, I was like, at least I've done a little bit like to stop you from winning. So no, that was another great feeling, and it's similar to like scoring against Hibs. It was a great moment for me and my family. And just in case the Celtic goal had made you forget about what it was like for the high of scoring against Hibs, Scottish Cup in February, great touch on your chest, lovely right foot strike into the bottom corner, another derby screamer. How bittersweet is that from half time, going in 2-0 up after you've just scored that goal, to what ended up happening? That was stinking, mate. I'm not gonna lie. That was horrible. I mean, we've got nobody to blame except ourselves, like the players and stuff like that. That game was just, we could easily put it to bed. Second half, we just sort of sat off them a bit and never played like how we did in the first half. Like, we were chasing everything. But that's football. Football's mental. That's all I've learned since I was younger. Is football's just meant, like, you literally never have a clue what's going to happen. I never thought a couple of years ago I was going to be in America. I never thought when we were 2-0 up I was going to get beat, or we were going to draw 2-2. But yeah, that game's in the back of my head, even though I scored it. I ended up getting booked for doing a celebration and stuff like that. I was just, drawing that game was hot. I just put that at the back of me because all my friends remind me of it as much as they can. Yeah, because that season Hibs, you were 10 minutes away from putting them out, and Hibs go on and win the Scottish Cup that year. But honestly, I've got pals that are Hibbies that remind me of that all the time. I'm like, cheers, appreciate that. Thanks. I mean, that season on a whole, obviously, the Scottish Cup aside, like we said, finished third, back into Europe, beyond your wildest dreams. Is there just so much excitement about the thought of travelling, playing football abroad? Yeah, definitely. I can remember, because like I said, I used to watch Hearts all the time, so I would see them in like the Europa League and stuff like that. And it was just, to be able to do that was amazing. Travelling away was just strange. I'd never done it. I'd never done anything like that before. So it was class. I can't remember. We went to Estonia the first time, and I was on the bench. I was pure fuming. I wanted to play so much. But yeah, it was good. It was just a good experience. You know, that's something that you do as like a footballer. You want to experience as much as you can, and that was just something I get to say I've done now. You know,
I would have said it was a fairly shock exit to the hands of Birkirkara of Malta. Is that the issue with the early rounds of the Europa League, where it's really taking place in the situation of pre-season? And like you said, most of the players in that squad wouldn't have played in Europe, so you're already trying to get your match sharpness for the new season, and you're already playing competitive games.
Yeah, I don't know if I remember this. I think Birkirkara were like halfway through their season as well. I think I'm not completely sure, but I can remember one of us saying that they just seem a lot fitter than us, especially when we played in Malta. You know, with the heat and stuff like that. But yeah, it was difficult because of how early it actually is. You're not like playing at your bit. You don't really get the best out of like a team or a player until you're like 4 or 5 games in. Doesn't matter how many games you have pre-season. You're never really ready for like a competitive game. So it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah, and that season kind of continued as it was after that. The league season started, but due to the good form, we talked about the same thing as a player with Hearts. If anyone's in form, player or managerial staff, people are going to take notice. How long into the speculation do you realise that Robbie Nielsen's going to take the MK Dons job, and does he speak to the players about that?
I literally didn't. I didn't have a clue about it. I can remember like coming out saying the MK Dons had like approached him and that, and he did talk to us. But his last game was against Rangers. We beat them 2-0, I think it was, and I was in the stand because I'd done my knee. I'd just got surgery on my knee, and he did sort of say like goodbye and stuff like that. But no, he'd done really well. He was a good coach, and he'd done a lot for the players, and a lot for Hearts. So it wasn't really anything that we could have grudged against him. I think if he stayed, we would have had another really good season, I think. But I'm sort of different to. I can see why some people look and go, "Oh, he shouldn't have left and tried this." To me, I'm just like, why not? You know what I mean? He'd done what he can with Hearts. He knew he'd done a good job. There was no reason for him to, stay. He had nothing to prove. He proved he was a good coach. He didn't have to stay. So to try England's a lot of people's dreams, and maybe that was just one of his.
For somebody that's got first-hand experience, what happened with Ian Caffrell and why didn't it go well? We've spoke to Ryan Gold, who's said that Ian Caffrell had a huge influence in his career. Ian Caffrell's success at Wolves as a coach, Newcastle as a coach, Valencia as a coach, it was his first managerial job. What was the issue?
I don't actually know, to be honest. I thought he was an alright. I thought he was an alright guy, to be fair. I got on alright with him. I can remember him. The most I spoke to him was because my contract was running out, and he was trying to sort of get me to like renew. And to be fair, he was actually like on my side with a lot of things. Like there was certain things, obviously, I don't want to go too much into detail that like I didn't really agree with. There wasn't anything to do with him. Probably shouldn't say this, but he actually agreed. He agreed with me with a lot of the things. So I got on really well with him, and we both did see eye to eye. But I don't know. I think it's just tough. Obviously, if it's his first managerial job, maybe it's a way. I honestly, I've been asked this question so many times, and I still to this day I'm like, I don't actually have a clue what went wrong, because he wasn't a bad guy. He literally wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a bad coach. Like he was actually a really good coach. So why it never worked? Sometimes things just don't click, I think, and sometimes a team doesn't really suit someone. I don't know. It's a strange one.
I think it seems like that, to be honest, from somebody who's then went to Newcastle and been a success and went to Wolves and been a huge success. I think sometimes it's just not a match made in heaven. Exactly. The contract negotiations didn't go well. At what point did you decide you were going to leave Hearts or not renew?
I can remember when I first said no, because Hearts done, like, they're no different to any other club, mate. They offered, the first offer they gave me was just, it's the same as every club, mate. They all do the same thing. They try and get you on the cheat. I think they thought because I was a Hearts fan, but they forgot that I was like everyone else. Like, I had a mortgage, and I was very well aware there was a lot of players that weren't playing that were on a lot more money than me and stuff. Like, I was a young boy as well. It was a weird decision to make at such a young age, But yeah, I got to a point where I was just like, I don't know, I just didn't really feel like they maybe wanted me as much as I felt they wanted me, because I can remember Jamie and Callum were in like contract discussions as well, and there's one going through, and I can remember thinking maybe they're not actually that bothered about keeping any of us. Do you know what I mean? I thought, because all they had to do was show more interest in all three of us, and they could have had us for another couple of seasons. That to me, I'm not saying anything bad about Hearts. Like, I would never disrespect them. They were great to me, and we just parted ways. As simple as that. But yeah, I just felt like I did, and I don't know about Callum and Jamie. I just didn't really feel like I was wanted or needed really by them anymore.
Yeah, I think that's maybe down to what we talked about right at the start. Was Hearts do seem to have a very good academy of players like yourself coming through, and maybe it was just a case of we can't afford to give him what he wants. Would tie him down, and they would have an asset to sell on later on.
Yeah.
You said you didn't have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
You said you didn't expect to be in the US. What offers were on the table?
I had a couple of things. In England, like lower leagues and stuff, but nothing was really set in stone. I can remember my agent was talking to a couple of teams, and then they pulled out, like, just randomly, and I was like, all right. I was like, what chance have I got? I was wondering what I'd done, but being a little shit like myself, it could have been anything. I could have said something or done something, I don't know. So I ended up just, my agent says, oh yeah, Minnesota United one year, and I just says, let's just go. I was like, there's no reason why I can't do well in my career just because I'm in America. Like, so I just ended up deciding to go.
Was there any negatives that you weighed up before signing?
The negative was the season before I left, I had an alright, like, I had a decent season, and there was a chance of me breaking through the Scotland team. So that was a negative, that I wouldn't make the Scotland team. But I could have ended up staying and not making it anyway. You know what I mean? So, and I could end up getting to the end of my career and regretting the fact I've never tried something new like America. So I've done it. I'm out here while I'm young. So yeah, the chance to leave is sometimes the right one, is sometimes the wrong one. It's just like anything in life, mate.
It's very interesting you say that, though, because we've done a few of these interviews, and a few players have said the exact same reason as to why they think so few Scottish players move abroad and favour a move to the Championship or League One in England is the exposure to Scotland. Even though you can watch your games every Sunday night on Sky Sports, but for some reason it feels like one of the boys we're going to interview next week, Adam Moffat, played out in the MLS and won the MLS. Other players were coming to the back end of their career to the same league and still staying in the team. So it seems weird that people can't break in, but they can hold their place if they go. Yeah,
it's a strange one, mate. I can't really put my head on it. Like, I honestly don't get, but it's football, mate. Football's messed up. It's a messed up career. It's a really rewarding career if you do well at it and stuff like that. I understand that. I understand why people are like, oh, you should stop complaining you're a football. I do get that. I honestly do get that. But yeah, it's messed up. You never really know where you're going to be. Like, I would love to be somewhere and know I'm going to be settled, but I don't have a clue. I went to America from one team to another, and I didn't even have a say in it. Like, there's no much you can do about it, you know. Yeah, that's very interesting. How does that work in America then? Yeah, I found out the day I got traded. Oh, really? I got a phone call one night. I was lying in bed. Got a phone call from our GM, because over here they don't do manager and coach. They do like a general manager. Yeah. Who oversees everything, like contracts, everything. And then you've got a coach who just takes you out on the field and stuff like that and takes you through the games. I got a phone call from our GM in Minnesota who didn't like me at all. Like, he just didn't like me at all. And he just literally said, he was like, how are you? I was like, oh, I'm good, thanks. How are you? And he went, look, he was like, we've traded you. And I was like, what? And he was like, Colorado they've offered us a player and they've paid money for you. And I was like, and you've accepted it? He was like, yeah. And I was like, so what now? And he was like, so you get on a flight tomorrow and you go to Colorado? I was like, what? I was like, I've got an apartment here. I was like, I can't just like get up and leave. Like, he was like, no, the league will pay for it. Everything will be sorted. And then I said to him, well, can I come in tomorrow and get like all my stuff and say goodbye to the boys? And he went, no. And he just hung up the phone. I was like, what? No. he didn't like me though. We had a little disagreement when I was at Minnesota. I came on, I'd been ill the whole week, came on as a sub against Seattle. And Adrian Heath, our coach, who was a really good coach actually, said to me, he was like, look, just stay at the halfway line. He was like, don't track back. He was like, let's just counter them, because it was 2-0 to them. So we needed to get something out of the game. So I can remember I got the ball crossed in, we scored, I got an assist. And then we missed a chance in the last minute, which I crossed in as well. Missed a chance from it. And then after the game, the GM was like, can I talk to you for a minute? I said, yeah. And he goes, if I was a coach, you would never play for me again. And I went, why? And he was like, because you don't want to do the defensive work. And I was like, I always do the defensive work. I was like, I was told not to today. And he went, I didn't tell you not to. And then just walked away. And I was like, what? I was like, you're not in charge. Like, you can't tell me what to do on the pitch. Like, I got told like 2 different things and he wasn't happy. So I just said to him, I was like, look, I'm going to do what the coach tells me to because he's in charge, like on the pitch. I was like, so I'm just going to carry on doing that. I was like, every game I defend, I was told not to this game. I was like, I don't think I've done anything wrong. And then he just kept being an idiot to me. So
when you moved, was your partner with you at that point?
No.
So you don't have, so it's just you that's uprooted overnight to a different state?
Just me by myself. And my dog. I only had one of them at the time.
We were talking before we started recording, you were talking about the altitude. Did you understand any of that before you arrived at Colorado?
No, mate. In my first session, mate, in the warm-up, I jogged round a cone and I turned into Danny Wilson and I went, what's going on here? He was like, what? I went, I can't breathe. And he went, aye. He was like, the altitude. He went, all the best, by the way. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, good luck playing in this. He goes, it's horrible. I'm telling you, mate, it's like you're getting strangled while you're running. That's how it feels, I'm telling you.
How long does it take you to adapt to that?
Took me about 3-4 months.
As long as that, right?
So every home game, I was like on my knees at the end, like couldn't breathe at all.
And is there an issue then with flying back and forth to different places where you maybe travel across country?
Travelling across country was brilliant. Away games was amazing because I was fitter than everyone. I could breathe more. It was honestly, like when we go away games, we're fitter than every team. But when they come to us, everyone in the field's knackered. We don't even have like, people think we have like a sort of edge over them. I'm like, we don't. I'm like, I'm knackered as well. I can't breathe.
One of your first games was against LA Galaxy. So you were up against Ashley Cole. Undoubtedly one of the best left backs of our generation. You managed to get a goal in that game. What is it like then in the MLS? Because these players are coming over for the end of their career, but you're still getting to play against some of the best players in the world.
Yeah, it's class. I mean, I got his top that game as well. I can remember like going up to him looking like Oliver Twist, like, please can I have your top? Like, it was amazing for me because I can remember watching him when I was a little bit younger when he was at like Chelsea and Arsenal and that. And he was still the same. He was still an absolute monster. Like he would run up the field all day. And I can remember thinking, he's a bit older, like he'll not have the legs about him. I'll be able to like counter-attack him, but I couldn't, to be fair. It was like he was still a really good player. And he proved it. He went from MLS to Derby, still a really good level. You know, he's proved that the MLS isn't that bad, I suppose, if he's done that.
It's a very good point, and that leads me on to my next question. The standard, I think, is really misunderstood from people watching in Scotland or in England. What level would you say the majority of MLS is at? Over the last few years, it's completely changed. Like if I look at Toronto with Sebastian Giovinco and Jose Altidore just absolutely breaking records left, right and centre, it's become this super competitive league where every team seems to have a case for competing. Is it totally underestimated and is on par with maybe the Championship in England or higher?
It's massively underrated, sorry. Massively, mate. I mean, see, here's one, right, that I say this to my pals all the time, and it's like, when I've said it, they've been like, good point. Like, because they wind me up, like, because we don't get to see the MLS, like, back home, we barely ever get to see it on TV. So, like, a lot of people just assume it's a bad league. When Scotland played Costa Rica and got beat for Costa Rica's starting team had 7 players in the MLS starting for them, and they managed to beat Scotland.
Yeah.
They've drawn against, like these players that are playing in the MLS, when they go to their national team, are drawn against Argentina, stuff like that. Like, it's crazy. Like, I've played against some players out here that are class, that would get into the Celtic and Rangers team, no doubt. I don't deny that at all. These players could get into their team. I've played with players that would walk into the Championship. I don't know the level of Championship because I've never played, but like I'd imagine, I know players that went from the SPL to the Championship, and these players are just as good. So it's just, for me, I just think it's underrated. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying it's better than Scotland. I'm not saying it's better than. It's hard to compare the league because they're two like completely different leagues. And you know, you've got a lot of travel over here. You need to fly to games. It's not like an hour drive, so it's a lot. There's a lot to take into it. But I just think it's underrated. I'm not saying this. I'm not saying it's worse than Scotland when I'm comparing. I'm not saying it's better than Scotland. Sorry, when I'm comparing Costa Rica and Scotland playing against each other. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it shouldn't be looked at the way it is because of there's proof there.
Yeah, well, on that, like, I think it is very interesting. People don't seem to take the same punt. I mentioned them before. Adam Moffat, the year that Mo Edu had his breakthrough year in MLS for Toronto was 2008, and it was the same year that Adam Moffat moved to Columbus Crew from Elgin City.
Yeah,
and he won the MLS Cup, and then Rangers spent $3.5 million on Mo Edu, but a homegrown player who was playing in the exact same league had won the cup. I don't even remember it being spoken about or being in a paper in Scotland.
does it, mate? It's because we don't get the games. We literally. I don't know if it's different now, but when I was in Scotland, when I was first moving over, I would get a game a week. That was it. There was nothing more. Like
it's different now. You can watch every single game of the MLS on a Sunday or Saturday night. Yeah, every game's on.
That should change people's minds, but like some people are just not going to want to change their mind on it, which is fair enough. Everyone's different. I can't complain that.
I do think people like yourself, Mackay, Stephen Russell and Lewis Morgan will change that a bit because there is more of an interest. Like even our podcast, we're following all Scots players abroad. So we have 4 players and 4 different teams to look out for every weekend, and then we've got all the other players around. So I think it will have to have an interest. And I do hope, we'll get on to this now, that your Scotland career wouldn't be frozen out because you're now at the MLS and out the way, because Johnny Russell's always in and around the squad. Mackay Stevens, Lewis Morgan started the season very well, and then obviously this has happened. So is there any idea, I know you've said different cities have been affected in different ways, Seattle's having a real bad time. Has there been any discussions as to when they think games can resume?
I don't know. We've had a lot of meetings, like with our team and stuff, like on Zoom calls and stuff, and everyone's in the same boat. We don't have a clue. I mean, they're trying to sort out like a pre-season, well, not pre-season, just like a tournament for us to go to. They'll start in July, but a lot of the players aren't happy because obviously they've got families and there's a chance of catching the virus and stuff. And it's going to be an 8-week tournament where you're not allowed to go home. So these people aren't going to see their families. So it's a bit of a nightmare, mate. But that's the start of it, and that's what I've heard. But I don't know, to be honest, mate. I really don't have a clue what's going on.
Yeah, I think when it is the same everywhere, right? Nobody actually does know. And I guess we touched on this already. So a big part of us is following yourself and hopefully future Scotland career, because that's why the Scots Abroad section is something we're so interested in. I had a look through the under-21s, we've already touched on it. At the time that you were breaking through the under-21s, you mentioned a couple before. Ryan Fraser was there, Barry Mackay, Billy King, James Forrest. You had Ryan Gauld was even playing wide at that point for the under-21s.
Yeah.
Was it just a very blessed team with 2 positions that 5 or 6 years were vying for?
Yeah, I think so. That's why I was never really against not getting called up. Obviously, I always wanted to get called up, and it was a great achievement and stuff. But especially when I got to the first team, I couldn't really complain because there were so many good players at that position, especially like Barry Mackay. I can remember seeing him in training. I can remember playing against him, but I saw him in training one day, and I was like, "This boy's incredible! He's one of the most technically gifted players I've seen. Like, he was unbelievable." And I just thought he was good. Like, I didn't think he was that good. But like, he would switch on and you'd be like, right, he's class. So then I couldn't complain if he was in over me. And then Ryan Fraser, he was every day brilliant, in games brilliant. You've got your Christie, Gauld, Billy King. I saw him every day at training, and I really couldn't complain at any of them being called up against me. So, but still, everyone's the same. You want it for yourself, and I was always like, I still want to be in it.
And I guess the ambition is at some point when football returns, get your form back and finally get a full Scotland international call-up?
Yeah, that's obviously something I would love, my family would love. So, yes, it's definitely an ambition, but I'm only going to get that if I'm on form, I suppose. Well, so that, stuff like that, who knows what's going to happen. Hopefully it does, but, I'm enjoying myself out here. I'm just trying to get back playing, and hopefully when I get that form and something that can happen from it.
Do you feel like you're more settled at your club just now than you were at Minnesota?
Oh yeah, Colorado. Yeah, I think I had a really good team at Minnesota. They were funny. Like I've never met, like when I first came over to America, I was like a bit confused with everything. Like we got beat in our first game. I think it was 3-0 from New York Red Bulls. I went into the dressing room and all the boys are like, "Where are we going tonight?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" They were like, "Oh, we're going to go for drinks." I was like, "You just got beat 3-0." And he was like, "Yeah, we're going out." I was like, "You can't do that. You got beat." I was like, "What are the fans going to say?" And they were like, "They'll have a drink with us." I'm like, "What?"
Okay.
I was like, and they were like, "Why do you not do that back home?" And I was like, "Nah, we get beat, we go out." I was like, "We get punched in the face by our own fans." I was like, "You can't do that back home." He was like, "Nah, it's fine." And I can remember like going out, like I barely ever drink, so I didn't even drink. I sat at the table, it was like filled with Minnesota fans, and they were like angry I wasn't drinking. I was like, "What the hell?" I was like, "What are you doing?" Like everyone's just so over here. They just get as long as they see you're actually trying like your best and you're like sweat and blood for the team, they have nothing against what you do in your spare time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You seem to be enjoying America. Is there any other countries that you'd like to play football in that you think would suit your style of play?
I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I've never thought about it, but I'm always open to stuff like that. You know, I think a lot of players. What my worry was when I was in Scotland was I was going to retire and not experience like all this different stuff. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of players are going to retire and have that, and I just didn't want to do it. So I would always be open to different countries and that. It doesn't mean just because people back home don't know where I am or I'm not getting a name back home anymore doesn't mean I'm not doing well for myself. You know? So I would 100% be open to that.
Yeah, and we will do our best to make sure people are still aware of what you're doing, what yourself's doing. Ryan Gaul, Johnny Russell, Fiona Brown, Kyle Ferguson, everyone that's playing out in other leagues abroad that maybe don't get the recognition back home or column inches that they deserve, we'll be making sure that happens. Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Good luck when the MLS season starts back. We'll be keeping an eye out.
Perfect. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.